I went on a job with him the other day and it was quite amusing. But he basically blamed his new equerry and he said, see that guy over there? Because people said, where's your Christmas jumper? He goes, I don't have one, I didn't know. So he pointed to his new equerry, who has a beard, by the way. I think he may have got...
Part of the job description.
I think he was influenced. And he pointed at him twice. He said, see that guy over there? He's in trouble. He didn't tell me I had to wear a Christmas jumper.
My favourite moment was that video that the Princess of Wales released after the summer. For years, that's what I've wanted from them. Just a bit more openness. That is my top royal moment of the year. And that is what I hope that they do more of, showing us that they're there and they're doing normal things. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of a Right Royal podcast with me, Andrea.
And me, Emily.
And welcome to our very Christmassy episode where we'll be discussing the festive plans of the royal family and taking a look back at some of the royals' biggest moments of 2024.
We'll also be having a look at what to expect from 2025, as well as some of the biggest news items from over the past week. And because it's Christmas, the guys at the Royal Club have come up with a festive special offer. Join the club via this link by December 27th and get 40% off all memberships for a year. And if you're listening as a podcast, click on the link in the description.
Anyway, we'll be joined by The Sun's royal editor, Matt Wilkinson, who will be discussing some of the biggest royal scoops of the year. But first, shall we have a catch-up, Emily?
Let's do it.
Now, as we're recording, a big family gathering is happening at Buckingham Palace. Tell us about it.
Okay, so this is the King's annual Christmas lunch for his extended family. So that's all the cousins and second cousins. And
so not 45?
No, the 45. So we're having 45 guests at Sandringham. But This is the kind of pre-Christmas warm-up lunch. It's a bit like a very grand office party, I think, if you like. But actually, there'll be a lot of faces there that we recognise. And it's because even though Sandringham is a huge place, they can't host everyone there. And people have in-laws to visit and their own families and grandchildren to spend time with.
Everyone takes turns, even the royals.
That's right. And over the last couple of years, it's been held at Windsor. It's returning to Buckingham Palace this year, which is lovely. And of course, Buckingham Palace is still being resurfaced. It might be their last chance to gather there for a big meal for a few years while certain rooms are being redecorated. So it's a nice occasion.
Now, lots of family members, obviously, that will love to see, they'll get pictured clearly arriving by car, which is kind of what's happened other years. But there are some noticeable absences this year.
There are now, and I know you're a big fan of looking out for pictures
Yes.
of the Wales children in the back of cars on their way in and out to the palace. Sadly, they're not there this year. The Waleses have decided to miss this. We understand they're already up in Norfolk. Their school ended at the end of last week, and so they're already in full holiday mode. And it makes sense, they're going to be with the King on Christmas Day. So why not get up there and start preparing?
Another noticeable absence is Prince Andrew.
Now, we've got a lot more to say about him shortly, but he's not attending, and we'll get into the reasons why in just a moment. But I want to ask you first about your own royal Christmassy outing last week.
Oh, I did. Yes. Well, I was invited to Apple, the Apple headquarters in London, because King Charles was attending. He was unveiling a plaque. And it was incredible. I mean, first of all, the Apple offices are amazing. I think about 6,000 employees work there. And you can imagine how big it was. And it was just lovely to see King Charles. I did think, and it might be the same in other engagements, I just felt this engagement was quite long and he managed it obviously perfectly well. But obviously it's different from when I'm in the office waiting for pictures to come in than when you're there. So maybe it did last like a normal royal outing. But he was on top form. He was as close as you are to me right now. He was really engaging with all the people that were showing him the technology of Apple. He enjoyed a concert by singer Ray. It was brilliant. I thought he was great.
He definitely seemed to be getting into the spirit. So
yes.
Just to explain to you listeners and viewers, there was a kind of Christmas market taking place that happens there at Battersea Power Station every year. And it's actually been set up by someone who was supported by the Prince's Trust, now the King's Trust.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to go and see this and support it. But he also had a meeting with Tim Martin, the CEO of Apple. And he was being shown this really advanced AI technology. And it reminded me a little bit of the late Queen when we saw her sort of being shown new technology, and, you know, she was at a much more advanced age. And she always found it really fascinating. Yeah. And like the late Duke of Edinburgh as well, I think it's lovely to see that the King is still open to technological advances and, you know, keeping up with what's going on.
And he laughed and he joked. And honestly, he was in top form. I absolutely enjoyed watching him from this close.
And he came away with a little present for Queen Camilla. I think some earrings from one of the jewellery designers on the stall. So good to see he's got all his Christmas shopping sorted.
Now, Queen Camilla is also getting her Christmas shopping sorted, isn't she? Because she was spotted yesterday at her favourite Fortnum & Mason.
Yes, she has been out and about this week doing a bit of Christmas shopping. She also joined her son, Tom Parker Bowles, for lunch on his 50th birthday at a very fancy restaurant in Mayfair. And she's definitely getting into the Christmas spirit. I was with her last week as she welcomed sick children and their families to Clarence House for her annual Christmas lunch. And it's a really beautiful occasion.
It's one of your favourite outings
of
the year.
It really is. You know, I've been lucky enough to cover it many times over the years. And what you see is Queen Camilla in grandmother mode. She basically rolls up her sleeves and serves up food to these children who are supported by two of her patronages, Helen Douglas House, which is a hospice in Oxfordshire she's supported for many years, and the Roald Dahl's marvellous children's charity. I need to make sure I say that correctly. And these are children who are living with life-limiting conditions. And it's all about giving them and their families, an opportunity to do something really special, because it's very hard for children with severe illnesses and disabilities to take part in the usual Christmas preparation that other families do. But it's also about making memories for them. And, you know, just speaking to some of the people who were there, it meant so much. But it's also lovely to see her. You can sort of really imagine what it's like to be in her house with her grandchildren around. She's sort of fussing over people and chatting to them and getting them to help decorate her Christmas tree. And it's just, you come away feeling full of good cheer.
Now, what I love about this event is that there's always reindeers. And this year they had a really good Santa, but I did miss the reindeers.
Yes, the reindeer didn't make it this year because of an outbreak of a virus, I believe. I could be wrong about this, called blue tongue, which sounds pretty unpleasant.
Oh, wow.
They don't have it, but the Department for Agriculture is preventing reindeers moving around the country, although I did check in with Father Christmas at this event, and I am assured that his own reindeer are not affected by this ruling, just to reassure everyone out there.
That's very reassuring. Very reassuring.
So good. Just in case I knew you'd be worried about that, Andrea.
Me and my children.
Yes, exactly. So.
Now, talking more about Christmas, I want to know more about Sandringham, because thankfully we know a bit more thanks to Prince William, who was out saying, you know, there's 45 of us at Christmas.
Yes, so William has been pretty open about the plans this year. He was at an event at Picton Barracks in Wiltshire with the Mercian Regiment, which he's a colonel in chief, or a royal colonel rather, and he was asked about his Christmas plans, and he said he wasn't ready, which was, you know, very relatable.
Very.
But also the fact that there were 45 of them sitting down to Christmas lunch. That's a huge gathering.
Not all at once, I think he said.
Well, I think all at once, but not all, spread out.
Spread out, okay.
Spread out.
There's clearly a kids' table.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, that's where you and I would be, let's face it.
I mean, it's more fun.
But, you know, I've been to Sandringham, and actually the rooms are not as big as you'd expect. The ballroom's huge, but actually the dining room is not vast. So, you know, they have to probably be quite careful with the placements and everything. But we know, of course, the Queen's son, Tom Parker Bowles, is going to be there for the first time this year. And she really wanted him there. And understandably, after the year that she's had with the King's illness, with the Princess of Wales's illness, it's going to be a really special one this year.
But there are also some very surprising absences that we've learnt about in the last week.
That's right. And we'll get into why in just a moment with our guest. But Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie won't be there this year. They are spending Christmas with their in-laws. It's the first time they've really been able to do that since they were married. And partly because of that, but again, more to come. But also their father, the Duke of York, is not going to be at Sandringham this Christmas. Now, we'll get into this in a moment, but he and Sarah, the Duchess of York, have decided they're not going to be joining the rest of the royals. And it's because, unfortunately, there has been another big brush with scandal with Prince Andrew. It all revolves around an alleged Chinese spy. So I think we should introduce our guest. It is Matt Wilkinson, royal editor of The Sun, and he's been covering this story all week. Let's welcome him in. Matt, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to have you back. One or two things have happened since we last saw you, but you have been very closely following and covering what's been happening with Prince Andrew. So can you tell us in a nutshell what has happened?
Well, what's happened is Prince Andrew almost got to the end of the year without disgracing himself, but he failed miserably. So he's been named in court papers. Some letters were sent by members of his team connected to a man that the Home Office had banned from the UK because they suspected him of basically being a Chinese spy. This guy has now been named, but he denies being a spy. Now, the issue here is just another classic example of Prince Andrew being close to people with dubious reputations.
Mm-hmm. Has he been hanging out with you?
He's got a history of it, and the worrying thing about this is that it's post Newsnight. It's post his when he was discredited and kicked out, and the Queen stripped him of all his princely titles. Kind of thought he might have learnt a lesson. And there's been a massive fallout from this. Not only has had this court case where he's named, and I think there were letters from one of his chief of staff saying that this Chinese spy was at the top of the tree of close confidence, and they used to smuggle him into Royal Lodge. The private secretaries didn't know what was going on. It all sounds very nefarious. But obviously there's been a massive fallout because he was due to be seen in public at Sandringham. He was due to walk with members of the family like, he kind of expects. He is the King's brother. And he was also going to go to the lunch, the pre-Christmas lunch at Buckingham Palace. First time at Buckingham Palace since about 2019. It's going to be a big deal. And we believe Sarah Ferguson is the Henry Kissinger character here, was the peacemaker and persuaded Andrew it was the right thing to do to stay at home.
It's really quite a turn of events, isn't it? I mean, he's already had quite a few challenges this year in the form of, TV series. Relating back, it's something he's never going to be able to get away from, is it? The Epstein situation, and now this. Now, just to play devil's advocate, and we were talking about this a moment ago, Andrew, is he just, yes, okay, this is not ideal, but is he a bit of a convenient fall guy? Because there are lots of other people who've been connected to the alleged spy, but they're not feeling quite as much heat.
No, but it's always Andrew. It's always him, isn't it? It's always his name that comes up. It's always him that brings controversy and scandal to the royal family. And I don't think this is going to go away. We've had this, it's all in the news at the moment about H6, Yang Tengbo, about his connections with him. But what it does is it opens up a very damaging avenue for journalists to look into, and also, the government and royal household and MI5, which we understand they are, looking into his finances. Mm. We haven't had many stories for several years on Andrew's finances, but we know that he has a history. Sarah Ferguson took a loan from Jeffrey Epstein. There's the mystery of the £1.5 million that was loaned and then paid back to a bank many years ago. He's got history with this, and I do worry that this time next year or in a couple of months' time, we will be seeing more stories about his finances, and this is, it could be more damaging really than what happened with him and Epstein. With him and Epstein, that went on, that rumbled on. It still is. That rumbled on for up to a decade. Mm. Okay, from the initial stories to the Newsnight interview, and it's got the potential to rumble on potentially as long as that.
So we're saying that 2025 can even be a worse year for him.
Yes. Honestly, I find this week thoroughly depressing. Yeah. Reading this Andrew news, it should have gone away, and the fact that the letters that we're shown in court, or the letters that were read out, the communication between him and this spy, or his staff and this spy, has happened 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's not something as historic as the Jeffrey Epstein relationship. Very different sort of set of circumstances. But look, it's had a big fallout for him already, just on a personal level. He's not going to Sandringham. He's not going to Christmas lunch. We got a feel for his daughters.
I do.
Right, because they, we're told, weren't going to be at Sandringham anyway. But this is a difficult situation that they're in, isn't it? They are having to, on the one hand, support him, but kind of catch a lot of the flack by association.
Yeah, they've been through years of this, but he is their father, so they do support him and try to look after him. But I was wondering whether this is almost a York boycott of Christmas. I mean, if you've got the two daughters and Sarah Ferguson and Andrew, if you take a step back, all four of them have said, "Oh, we're not going to Sandringham for Christmas." You start thinking, well, this whole family have fallen out possibly with the rest of the royals.
Well, we are told that the Queen has been instrumental, I believe anyway, that Sarah Ferguson is the person who stepped in and told Andrew that this might be the right thing to do, to not go and to spare the royal family's blushes. But the Queen is quite close to her. I think we read just from Sarah herself in the past week that her mother was very close to Camilla. So I like the idea of the royal ladies stepping in here and trying to just smooth things over and make things look a little better. But I mean, as you say, one to watch. Now, I think we should get into a bit more of what the past year has served up, because it has been, someone described to me earlier this week, an absolute curveball year for the royals. Take me back to January 16th, 17th.
A couple of days before that, I mean, we were looking forward to a positive year. We were expecting lots of foreign travel. We'd just had, I remember, the last crisis had been Endgame. That came in November when the alleged names of who made racist comments about Meghan and Harry's children had emerged, and they'd kind of ridden everything. They got past the coronation. In the beginning of January, we were like, great, we're going to have such a good year. And then I think it was within about half an hour, we first of all got the news. We were told that the Princess of Wales was in hospital. Shock, horror. She's had surgery. She'd be in there for
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we're just coming to terms with that. And about half an hour later, or maybe about an hour, we were then told that the King, who was looking forward to a positive year, needed treatment for an enlarged prostate. And this is our two superstars. Within an hour, we were being told they had to go to hospital, and it just really set the year off on such a negative atmosphere that sadly did carry on for many months.
We thought it was going to be a quiet one at one point. Not quiet,
Don't
but
never
we thought...
say the Q word.
I know.
How many
Oh my
times
God!
do I
I
have to tell you?
I don't learn.
But it was in some respects because they weren't visible in the way that we're used to. Although the King did get back out fairly quickly, didn't he? And he's made it a sort of a priority, I guess, to be seen in the way that the old Queen liked to say you have to be seen to be believed. But they came out and then they took quite different approaches, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they took different approaches, because of the types of cancer, and also I also believe it's because of their roles. I mean, if you think the King has to be seen, as you rightly pointed out, and he wanted to, like he took the attitude that I can't hide away. My job is to get out there, be seen. And he remember we did it at that Easter ceremony. He came out after the service and he shook everyone's hand, and that was the kind of start. He did that and he thought, let's go. I can do this. Princess of Wales, it's a bit similar to when you're catching a flight and you hear the security announcement and they say when the masks come down, put your mask on first before you
Absolutely.
Before you put it onto your children. And I think she's taken the view that I need to look after myself this year. That's the priority. I've got to look after myself because I've got 3 young children, a husband who's about is the heir to the throne, and my most important role is to be a mother and a wife. So she's taken a different way of coping with her cancer and her treatment because of her circumstance.
Now, if we go back to February, March this year, I find it incredible even just now thinking back on the sort of mass hysteria that emerged from her absence. It's really not like anything we've seen before, but the whole world went crazy about Kate's whereabouts and her well-being. And some of the conspiracy theories were absolutely wild. We discussed this at length at the time. And then we got to the point where she spoke and she came back. There had been this drama over her Mother's Day photograph. I've never seen that happen before, where photographic agencies brand a royal photograph. I can't remember the phrase that they used, but
it was a kill notice.
It was a kill notice, which was extraordinary. And then she kind of put everyone back in their box very deftly. What do you remember from that day when we were told about this message she was about to put out?
Timing is everything. Remember the late Queen Elizabeth II? She'd always do it at the right time. Just when you were kind of, she would time her addresses. Like I remember the COVID address came just at the right time when people wanted it, and I think that's what the Princess of Wales did. It was at the right time when she when she was prepared, I didn't think she was pressurised into it. I think she had taken time to digest the news. They were aware of what was being said online, by the
Very
way.
much
and
so.
I say that was one of the most disgusting periods of time I can remember. If you think back when the photographers changed after the death of Princess Diana, like the ways that everybody acted. I think newspaper headline writers maybe changed after the Duchess of Sussex arrived, because some of those, headlines, were quite unpalatable. And I think now's the time for people who think it's hilarious to post things just to get likes and clicks on their social media. I think it's now for them to maybe look at their behaviour, because I thought they've got Kim Kardashian was tweeting stuff like that, and it was just dreadful. But thinking back to that, I was glad that she came out and did that statement, and I think it was the right time.
It's the most, I have to say, it's their most popular post of the whole year is that video of her sitting on a bench. I think it got 2.1 million likes. And there's a reason why. I mean, that video was incredible.
Yeah, it was very, very powerful. I mean, from my own perspective, I remember being, as you say, pleased to see her and to have an answer, if you like, but also so shocked and sad for her. It just seemed like such an unfair turn of events, especially given, what the king was going through. But we've really seen a change in her, I think, since then, in the way that she's communicating, in the way she's doing everything. We'll get a bit more into that in a moment, but the king returned to work in the meantime. He was back in April and he chose to visit a cancer centre for his first engagement. This was new, wasn't it? It felt like this was a real moment in which the royal family became, I guess, more relatable than ever. I
think they're always relatable. I mean, you think how many people, families, have someone or know someone or have friends or something, you have cancer, it affects everyone. So I think they use that quite powerfully. The amazing thing about that visit was kind of how hands-on he was.
Yeah.
He's been since the beginning of his reign. He's always gone on big walkabouts and stuff on jobs and going to speak to people. I think cancer probably does maybe changed his personality a little bit. But also he mentioned that I think he was going for cancer treatment that afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of bravery as well that comes out. And you go, well, hang on a minute. Why have you chosen this day? Of all days, you're going to have some cancer treatment in the afternoon. But that was all... I was there outside. I think you were there as well. And there was just so much media.
Yeah.
It was a huge pen. It was like a red carpet event. It was like standing outside some kind of movie premiere or something like that.
Wow.
Everyone was waiting to see the king walk in. It was the amount of cameras and journalists from all around the world. There was worldwide journalists from across Europe as well that had actually that went to that event.
And he genuinely looked really happy to see the crowds. There's a lovely photograph of him carrying a posy of flowers he's been given and sort of waving it in the air, because I think he was just delighted to be back out and doing what he wants to do. And it sounds like nothing's going to stop him. The Queen is always complaining about the fact that he's working too hard, but he has modified things somewhat. You were there later in the year, of course, when he went to Australia and Samoa, but we'll come to that in just a second. I want to talk about Kate's return to the public eye at a very minor event known as Trooping the Colour. And this came after she'd issued another personal message and a beautiful photograph of her standing underneath a tree. How important do you think it was that they sort of managed our expectations in the way? I think they must have known that we were all going to be sort of having a look to see how she appeared. Do you think that was part of the thinking behind that?
Well, yeah, they kind of fumbled it a little bit because there was talk about her not attending or attending a kind of Colonel's review a couple of weeks earlier. So it was really fraught. And again, timing is everything. And I think that Trooping was the right place for her to appear because it was kind of a safe space. She was in a carriage. She wasn't surrounded by, members of the public or, people trying to grab her or hold her or wave to her. She was with her children. Then she watched she watched Horse Guards, the actual trooping ceremony from the balcony, and then appeared on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. And as she surrounded herself with royal kind of symbols, really, carriages, the pomp and ceremony of trooping, and Buckingham Palace. And it was the right thing to come back. I think if she'd come back and done some kind of charity event or gone to a hospital like Charles, I don't think that would have been right for her. I think, as I say, it was a safe space to come to the return.
Well, and then William said at the end of the summer that one of the reasons why they didn't go to the Olympics was because, she was undergoing treatment, and it wasn't really a space for her to be in. So it kind of makes sense that she kept a bit away from the public in her festival.
But we're greedy with
Yeah, I know, but I'm very greedy.
Do you know what I mean? We're greedy. We're desperate to kind of see her, and she's kind of had many comebacks. We keep saying, "Oh, that's her first public appearance."
I've written Kate's return many times this year.
So we're greedy. We've got to remember, she's early 40s, and we've got 4 or 5 more decades of seeing Kate go to events. So just give her the,
she should pace herself. We should pace ourselves.
Yes.
give her a bit of grace. And of course, though, the really big sort of comeback moment for her turned out to be in September through this incredible video that she released to kind of update everyone on her progress. But it was also about setting out how things were going to look from now on, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, and again, the actual style of that video as well was kind of special. We'd never seen anything like that. The kind of sepia-toned footage of the family.
Loved it.
Again, showing how important her family have been to her this year. And it was what the difference between that one and the one earlier in the year was stark, because one earlier in the year, she was delivering bad news, but issuing a little bit of hope, but she was sat there stripped down without any makeup, sitting on a bench at Windsor Castle. This one was just positive. But it told us, yes, I'm coming back, but I am going to come back slowly, as I've been asking all year. Just give me a bit of time.
And these are the people who are my priority. I thought that was really powerful, but also including her parents in that. I thought that was
very significant,
a lovely move. And it's the most we've seen inside Animal Hall ever. So,
but also when it was, I know I'm skipping ahead, but at the carol service, Prince Louis's little thank you card was for his grandparents, Carol and Michael, and they've clearly been very important to the whole family this year.
Unsung heroes, I think. I think I was asked the other day about who's my unsung hero, and people talk about Sophie, people talk about William, but Carol and Michael Middleton, you're right, they need a shout out, because when Catherine was in hospital, William several times took, I think for at least 1 or 2 weekends, would take the kids to see them in Bucklebury. And they were, that's what they're there for. That's kind of what grandparents' job is, isn't it? To look after the children.
Well, they've been as much a support for William as for Kate and the children, especially with his own dual concern over his wife and his father. I mean, he's had a hell of a year. Take us back to Wembley and that box at the Taylor Swift eras, because that actually made me do a little punch into the air, because I felt like if anyone deserved to let off some steam, it was William.
The dancing.
It's
all about the dancing.
Can you give us a quick demo?
No, I can't. It was, the selfie was great. The selfie went around the world and everyone got really excited about the selfie and the meaning behind that. But it was the dancing, what we found out, we might as well talk later, but what we found out at the end of the year when William, spoke about how difficult he had found it. You look at that dancing and enjoying himself at Taylor Swift and say, go on, just go and have a good time.
Exactly. I think, and I love that he leans into it. He's had a bit of ribbing about dad dancing in the past, but he is a dad and he's dancing.
He's proud of his dancing.
It's better to be a bad dancer than a good dancer, I think. It's more embarrassing if you are actually a good dancer.
Oh, yeah,
if you're a bad dancer,
I
it's
can't
fun.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
But I also love that, they say dance like no one's watching, but do it at Wembley Stadium where there are cameras all over you. I'm here for the future king behaving like that. I think it's great. I mean, he's had quite the transformation this year. We're hearing him and Kate talking more openly about how they feel about things, their response to things. There's also been a beard development.
Yes. And trainers and more casual.
Yeah.
He's now shopping in second-hand shop.
We're here for all of this, although you do need to influence him a little bit on the jumper front, Matt.
Oh, he didn't have one the other day. I went on a job with him the other day and it was quite amusing.
Were you wearing yours?
I wasn't in mine. I didn't get the memo either. He basically blamed his new equerry and he said, you see that guy over there? Because people said, where's your Christmas jumper? He goes, I don't have one. I didn't know. And everyone was wearing Christmas jumpers. It was really good fun. It was at a barracks, army barracks in Wiltshire, and he was going from table to table speaking to soldiers, servicemen, their wives and their children, giving out presents. And so he pointed to his new equerry, who has a beard, by the way. I think he may have got...
Part of the job description.
I think he was influenced, And he pointed at him twice. He said, see that guy over there? He's in trouble. He didn't tell me I had to wear a Christmas jumper.
Did your equerry get yours out for you today?
No comment.
Mine let me down. We've gone sparkly. Gone sparkly. I just want to throw in a couple of honourable mentions for someone else who had a brush with the hospital this year and was back out at work very quickly. The one and the only Princess Anne. she's extraordinary at
She's
the
a
best
super
of
trooper.
times. But that was yet another curveball moment, wasn't it, for the Royals this year?
I know they lined them up, didn't they, this year? Hopefully they've just saved them all up for 1 year.
Yes.
And we can have many years of without these kind of hospital dramas. I think I said this before, but I kind of feel sorry for the horse. I do wonder if she really gave the horse a stern talking to
Yes, I would be afraid.
when she got back. But yeah, she's indestructible, isn't she?
I hope. What a hero. And the Queen, of course, who's been such a trooper, being diagnosed with pneumonia. I mean, please tell me next year's going to get better.
I'm more worried about Queen Camilla than maybe I should be, but I think she's taken a long time. There's been a lot going around. I've had a terrible cough, and lots of people have had bad throats and stuff like that. But I think she used to be a smoker, Queen Camilla. And I'm more worried about the fact that she's had pneumonia and had this cold or this cough or this illness, infection that she can't shake off. I was a bit worried about Camilla, and I think it's one to watch, I think.
The Queen fell ill, we understand, after her trip definitely after her trip to Australia and Samoa. And my understanding is that she feels she may have picked something up on the plane, which is entirely possible. You were on that trip. It's a fairly gruelling trip for everyone involved, no matter your age or status. How did they seem to you?
Well, I was really worried before the trip, because it is a long way, and the King was adamant that he was going to go. He made the decision. He says, I am definitely going. They didn't go to New Zealand, and I think Fiji was muted, and they didn't go to Fiji. And he did look tired. There were times where I thought the King, particularly I was in Canberra, it was a really hot day. He did look quite exhausted at times, and his aides and his staff, normally when you're on his jobs, he can sometimes have a little word with them and say, how's it going? Where you stay in a hotel, get a little bit of gossip. And they were laser eye focused on watching the King, and I was getting a little bit worried that maybe he'd taken on a little bit too much, because he did have a rest day. They arrived and had a rest day, and then he just hit the ground running. By the time we got to Samoa, everyone was just relaxed, confident. They got through Australia. I think the jet lag had been quite difficult for the King. I think he had found it quite arduous. But by the time they got towards the end, they were kind of cock-a-hoop that they'd got to that stage without any major disasters with the King.
Without having to cancel anything or postpone anything. And let's not forget, he had paused his treatment to be able to make this trip, hadn't he? So it's really quite an ask for someone going through what he's going through.
There's a lot relying on him on that trip. Okay, it had to go well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that he'd gone through this year, and they say he'd paused his treatment, he was desperate to do it. He had persuaded his doctors we'd spoken to his doctors, and they'd agreed that he could actually go. So there was a lot hanging on it being a success. So they were really nervous at the beginning, I think. They were really cautious. But I say after about 3 or 4 days, when they realised, hang on, this has gone all right, that the King's actually looking okay. He hasn't done anything wrong. I was happier towards the end of that tour once I saw the behaviour of the staff.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually, because sometimes that's what gives you the clue that something's going on, isn't it? It's the reactions of the people who are around them every day. But pleased to hear that, everyone came back well, apart from the Queen, poor thing. Even though she'd had her little stopover in India on the way home.
God, yes, the relaxing.
The Sukhia spa. I think we need to get over there at some point for our own little, post-royal
Did you not stop
tour.
on the way back? I stopped there.
We didn't even
Did you not get
go.
an email? Oh.
Oh, you left me out. We'll do it another time.
And then did you head straight to Cape Town?
So, yeah,
You
Cape
don't
Town.
miss one, do you?
No, well, Cape
You like
Town-
your trips.
Well, the thing is, this year they hadn't done any.
I know.
Remember?
Mm,
So
they-
stacked up. We thought the year would be packed
Got to get
full
those
with
air
foreign
miles
trips,
somehow.
yeah. But I wasn't going to miss Earthshot. I quite like Earthshot. So we came back, I think it was about 3 days back in the UK, then off to Cape Town. I wasn't going to miss it because A, it's really important to William. And B, he often talks to the journalists in Cape Town.
And
which
didn't
is
he just this year?
Yeah, because we did Singapore the year before, and it was a bit of a surprise. And he actually said some amazing words in Singapore, where he spoke about how he wanted to activate change, how he actually wanted to make do work that actually matters, and it didn't make huge coverage at the time. But looking back to what he said in Singapore, was really important, and he really built on that in Cape Town when he spoke about the future of what he wants to do with Earthshot and how he wants to see the Prince of Wales roll, a royal with a small R, as he saw
What
it.
did you make of that? Because that's quite a statement, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't elaborate, did he? So I think we're seeing with actions, we're seeing fewer jobs. Let's be honest. There's fewer jobs that William's carrying out, but he wants them to have more impact. So he's selecting homelessness, climate, those kind of big issues, and Princess of Wales with her early years, and trying to focus 100% on these big projects rather than spreading himself too thinly.
Yeah, and of course he talked about how his year has been, and I felt it was lovely actually to hear it from him, because he was the one sort of front and centre through all of this at the start of the year and putting a brave face on it, and no one really knew quite how bad things were for him.
No, I think it's one of the most important kind of comments that he's made to the media. I think it was honest. You know, he was kind of happy at the end of the trip as well. He was kind of relaxed; it had all gone well. But we thought, you know, we kind of clubbed together and said, well, we need to ask for the press media. We need to give some questions. What do we ask? And we kind of all agreed as a kind of group that no one's really asked how he's getting on. So he said, "How are you getting on?" And he took a deep breath and he said, "It's been one of the most difficult years of my life." And when you think
what he's been through,
yeah.
I have to say, I did love that, but I did love the candid, confession, how Charlotte cried over his beard and he actually shaved it off. And then he was like, actually, no, I'm going to grow it back. I don't know if you're a parent, but I feel like we all go through this with our kids where they...
Well, my kids didn't like my beard.
Yeah. Not like the beard, but they kind of dictate what we can have or not. And then we listen to them and we're like, wait, I think I can do this on my own.
Yeah, I'm the future king. I will have a beard if I want one. Yeah, that kind of behaviour. Kate obviously came back yet again for Remembrance Sunday. And that was an important moment, wasn't it? The Queen wasn't there because of her illness. But I think it's interesting that she's picked very specific things to come back to. Remembrance being a really important one. Obviously, she wasn't able to be at D-Day. And then her carol service. How do you see next year panning out for her? Do you think she's going to continue this very sort of selective, high-impact attendance at events?
I do, and I wouldn't complain if she does.
Okay.
If she only chooses to do these, just say like a trooping or an Easter service, and those two events towards the end of the year, carol concert, etc., I wouldn't complain. I think we just need to give her that kind of freedom and ability to decide. I think she'll want to get stuck into work. I think in the new year we'll see a little bit more early year stuff, maybe hosting talks or making an address or making some kind of announcements about her work. I don't see her diving around, turning up at charities, turning up at food banks and stuff like she used to do in the past. It'd be welcome, but I'm not going to put her under pressure and say that we're expecting it.
Yeah. No. I feel like she's reevaluated everything and she's going to take, she's probably going to make the most of being Princess of Wales and kind of slow down. The kids are very young and there are some big changes coming for, the eldest. I feel like she wants to be more of a mum, but also do what she's doing, but more behind the scenes. I feel like I get that feeling.
While the children are young and while she's able to. And William, I guess, we're talking a lot about him being a statesman, we have done over the last couple of years. But the Trump moment in particular was very significant, I thought.
Yeah, remember we're told that he's a global statesman.
Yes.
So we're being told as a journalist, we said, well, William is a global statesman. I would like to, that's why I like the Trump incident,
yes,
the Trump meeting,
it was
because
evident.
we're being shown that he's a global statesman. I thought that was great. I think I like the idea that it was held at the ambassador's residence, the UK ambassador's residence.
And
so
Trump came to him.
Came to see William, not
That's
the other way around.
That's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah, it really shows the sort of added extra that the royals bring, I guess, to UK diplomacy. They're a draw where politicians quite often aren't.
No, they're also a big name as well. You say a draw, you're right, they're a draw because, would Trump go out of his way to, meet Keir Starmer? There's people around the world, Keir Starmer's been going all the way around the world the last couple of months to speak to world leaders because they don't really know who he is. They don't really know what he stands for. But Charles has been doing it for decades. Mm-hmm. World leaders know Charles. He knows all the Arab leaders. He knows the families that kind of run countries and stuff like that. And that's what William now has to position himself as Prince of Wales. He needs to position himself into that place where he can travel the world, mingle with world leaders, and be authoritative on that kind of stage. I welcome it. But as I say, we're being told he's a global statesman. Let's see him display that.
I think we will. I think there'll be more of this coming up, I guess, in the next year or so. What's your top prediction for next year? Now, this could go badly wrong because my prediction last year was travel, and more travel.
Yeah.
And it didn't really happen in the way we were expecting.
It's depressing, but I think Andrew's going to be in the news a lot next year. I just think this story's not going to go away. And I think Andrew's a lightning rod, so it might be good news maybe from the other members of the royal family, because we'll have all our attention on Andrew. He'll take all the negative coverage. As I say, I think the Princess of Wales will continue taking her time, see her at the big events. King will just continue being king. I don't see anything like that changing. Foreign travel, we know that the King and Queen will go to Italy, which is good. And there will be somewhere in the autumn. So I think that might be a little bit further away than Europe. But yeah, I hope that we see them at the big stage events, Royal Ascot, Garter. I just hope that we get to see them actually dressing up, carrying out their duties. I'd like to see that.
And Christmas jumper this time next year. Come on, Prince William, if you're listening.
What are your predictions? I'll have to ask this about the Duke of Sussex, because at the beginning of the year, when obviously King Charles explained what he was going through, he was quick to come over, and there was a feeling that maybe this would be the year where they reconciled, but not much has happened.
No, and I think we'll just continue on that vein. I mean, don't forget when Charles took the throne, I think like 24 hours after his mother died, he delivered a televised address from Buckingham Palace, and he said, I send my love to Harry and Meghan as they continue their life overseas. Nothing's changed. Their life's overseas. Harry just the other day was doing the interview in New York, and he said, "No, I've got no intention of coming back to the UK to live. I'm happy here." We have seen with Harry and Meghan what I'd call a kind of a kind of conscious professional uncoupling, where they've gone their separate ways business-wise, and that will continue. They don't spend much time together, but this, without having Meghan by his side all the time, that does give him the opportunity, I feel, to come back to the UK more, because he won't come back with Meghan because of the security issue that he claims, and it gives him the freedom to come back to the UK a little bit more. But I see no change with his relationship with his brother and his father. It's still the same.
It's very sad.
Will it be a big year for them in terms of business? Will she finally, launch? Was it Riviera?
American Riviera Orchard.
We're nearly 9 months away, I think, since when it was
the
revealed on
Instagram
Instagram.
launched. Yeah.
And how hard can it be?
I know.
How hard can it be?
And the TV series it finished recording, I think, in October, we were told. So there's, it might be a big year for them.
Every year is a big year for Harry and Meghan. But yeah, we've got to. I mean, if we care, if we genuinely, because she's not a working royal, she's never really going to come back to the UK anymore. She's not involved with the royal family. She's gone. Okay, any kind of idea that there's any kind of reconciliation with Meghan, that is totally over. So we really have to start asking ourselves this year: do we care if she launches a new TV show? Do we care if she launches a new website or a new product? Is it going to be all over the media? Is it something that people are talking about? And I suggest maybe people will start getting a little bit bored of it, because there's no drama anymore with Meghan. She's just out living in California, having these initiatives and charity projects.
Well, what's your prediction?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Look, I predict, similar to Matt, because we speak to the same people, I'm sure. There are going to be some smaller trips earlier in the year, Rome being among them. And again, a wait-and-see approach with the Princess of Wales. I don't see her returning to the kind of normal we were used to before her illness, at least not in the immediate future.
And people should accept that, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one thing this year has taught us is that you can't just place unreasonable demands on people because they're royal. Look, the way that Kate, was fussed over and discussed and the subject of so much scrutiny earlier this year. Hopefully, if nothing else, this year has really taught people that everyone needs a bit of space.
Yeah, what do we want our royals to do? Do we want to just work them, to the bone? Why are we demanding them to do so much? Why do they have to do all these kind of things? They need to focus on the important things.
I think because, with me, I compare them to a lot of other European royal families, and we cover them a lot in hellomagazine.com. And what I have to, this is me going into my favourite moment of the year, and it will all make sense, but my favourite moment was that video that the Princess of Wales released after the summer, and that's what I've been telling you for years. That's what I've wanted from them, just a bit more openness, not being afraid to just show a bit of what goes on behind the scenes. And that is my top royal moment of the year, and that is what I hope that they do more of. Not being out every day working, but kind of showing us that they're there and they're doing normal things and other things and just going, like you say, to charities or
Do you think it gives? I think it gives people a bit more empathy with them, doesn't it? When
Yeah.
you see that they, like any other family, have children to look after,
exactly.
other commitments,
Normal weekends, they like to spend time with their grandparents. They like to go out, and they're just
but also having some vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Because I think in the past the royals have been very wary of ever showing that. The stiff upper lip mentality from the last generation, I
Well,
think,
yes, a new generation,
is
isn't it?
long gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what were your favourite moments of the year, if I can ask?
Well, I'll go first. Mine was very fleeting, but it was the moment in which the king got sort of a pile-on hug from the New Zealand female rugby team. And the reason why that really stands out to me is just I feel like, again, this has been this step change from the royal family of a couple of years ago. We've seen him over the years. He's quite a tactile person. He's a very warm person, but I don't think the public have seen it as much as they have done this year. And I just felt it was a really lovely moment after everything he's been through. And he also, is kind of just relaxing into this and going, why not? Why not? I just thought that was really lovely.
My favourite moment is probably just a personal moment, because it's kind of one moment that I had. We were in Australia, and it was the day after Lydia Thorpe had stormed into Parliament and caused a stink. And the following morning, I was on a job in Australia in Sydney, where the King went to a community centre with Indigenous people. We thought, wow, this is going to kick off again, isn't it? There's going to be a big drama here. So I was on the rota, and I was primed to make sure that if there was any comments, if there was more protests. And it was the warmest, friendliest, gentlest engagement I've ever done. So much so that I abandoned the bus that was going on to the next engagement. I stayed there for about 2 hours. The cups of tea with they're called uncles, they were kind of like the leaders. And I met this guy called Widdy, who had given the king a hug. And he was one of the forgotten children, he was one of the stolen children that was taken away and put into care homes. It's a massive scandal in Australia. And they were just really, really fantastic people. And they were talking about the Lydia Thorpe drama, and they were saying, we kind of agree with everything she said, but that's not the way you say it. And I was just really impressed, like coming away from Australia, seeing the Indigenous community out there, but also the way that the King interacted with them. I think he would have loved to have had a conversation with, and addressed Lydia Thorpe's comments. He might even supported some of them. Do you know what I mean? To speculate, he's the kind of guy that would listen to what she said. But I thought that was just such a warm. You really saw the King, accepting hugs. He was hearing people were saying to him things that were reasonably controversial. You are now on Indigenous land and stuff like that. But he was just he acted really well, and I just came away from that really glowing. It was a really nice time.
He's really been open to all of these conversations. It's something that he could run a mile from if he chose to. But he's facing things that must be really difficult to hear, because he's not personally responsible for what's happened to these people. But it is connected to his ancestors. So it's a tough one. I really think it shows some courage on his part.
It does, and for him not actually speaking out or saying something wrong, because it's going to have to be for the politicians to decide this. But every time we go abroad, this kind of issue raises its head because of the history of Britain. And I think he's doing the right thing currently.
Matt, it's been great to have you back for our Whistle Stop tour of 2024. We'd love to have you back in 2025 to see what comes next, quite frankly.
Let's see what comes next. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That's everything from us today and 2024. Thanks so much to Matt and Emily, and to you two for joining us. Before we put Out of Office on, we want to thank each and every one of you for listening every week from all over the world: the US, Canada, Australia, Germany, Ireland, and of course, UK. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll be back in 2025.
In the meantime, get more from Hello with our entertainment podcast, The Daily Lowdown, available on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Christmas.